And you're right, though, because you touched a huge issue. One, these are public-private partnerships. This is a whole new generation of it, a new approach to it. And as you said, it's extraordinary to see competing companies in industries come together to try and look for solutions. One of the most urgent places is emerging markets. You've come from them, done a lot of them, and it's a key part of your business. What is the impact now? What are the blocks that we've got to overcome to keep the sense of momentum up now?
Well, the big block, I think, is to establish a sense of achievability. There's a $3.5 trillion financing gap, the vast majority of which is in developing countries, and that's concentrated in Africa, South America, and parts of South Asia, and sort of non-Japan Asia. And that's if there's no sense that $3.5 trillion is obtainable, then people they're not going to make the plans. They're not going to develop the infrastructure to support that. So we really have to, I think, build the confidence that we can deliver on this over many years. This is a 30-year undertaking here. And we've talked about it a lot. We've made some good progress, but I wouldn't say that the confidence is high that we can actually deliver this.
Because I felt, and you must feel this, Jennifer, that this is a long road. We know it's a long road. We know it's a very steep hill. But what's different, and I felt very different out of COP, these were commitments on the long, but also on a very short. Very specific, and they're measurable, and people are looking at you saying, so, Peter, what are you going to do in the next 3 to 5, and we're going to watch it. And so I think you're right. The question is that enough momentum to get to that kind of commitment? And where you sit, you must see it across all the sectors.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest issues we need to solve. And we talked about innovation. And then you might think innovation in terms of technology. We need financial innovation as well. We don't have the right financial mechanisms. And to de-risk, whether it's currency risk, whether it's first loss guarantees, we have a huge challenge in some of these markets. And what we're looking to is like the multilateral development banks, like the World Bank, like the IMF, to come in and help take that risk off the table so the investment can go through. One of the challenges we find is that the capacity to absorb the asset manager, asset owner level of finance is not there through the World Bank. One bank, one of your things, it has as much capital as the entire group of multilateral development banks, right, at its disposal. And so this is the opportunity, but again, like the innovation to be able to build the financial pipeline that will work, and how we get smaller countries to bundle their initiatives, so a regional energy project rather than one by one, like that. Those are opportunities to accelerate. And I think if we're going to focus in our time, let's build the pipelines so we can then channel these funds, but also be very clear about where the alignment regionally might be.
Yes. And because, Peter, where you sit, you're dealing with people all over the world. And do you feel now, I've had so many questions this week, so Ukraine puts all this back again, is what I get a lot of questions. So it's all off the table. Do you feel that in the organisation? Do you have, do people feel they're realigning? Because you must have an awful lot of people saying, yes, what do we do about Ukraine? And so does that mean, Peter, we move our corporate energy there? And do we pull back from those commitments? So just as an organisation responding in the last few weeks, organisations themselves, let alone their long-term commitments, have just felt we have to respond. Do you feel that's an overwhelming response on that, and this will overshadow it?
I hope not. The situation in Ukraine is just awful. And where will we be in the Ukraine in a year's time is, we don't know the answer to that. That's an open question. The climate crisis doesn't go away in a year. And so we have to maintain the rage and just keep at it. And as you said earlier, we've got to have these targets for 2030 and 2050, because re-establishing whole industries to be green isn't going to happen next year or the year after. But you don't want to get to 2029 and go, oh, we're a fair way off what we want to do in 2030. So action has to start now. And to Bill's earlier point, we need to make sure, and this seems so esoteric, but we've got to have standards and accounting standards so that people can be held to account. And we can't have some people measuring centimetres and some people measuring centigrade and some people measuring feet and inches. I mean, it's got to be the same metrics so that we can all be held to account. And that's a really important enabler that governments and regulators have to deliver. And once that's delivered, then it's up to us as businesses and industries to then push forward. But you've got to have targets for next year and the year after on the way to 2030 and 2050.
Because that you're a very good picture of it. Your point is it's got to be a framework that people can work within and be held accountable in, and that will stop it being pushed off by other events, because sadly Ukraine probably isn't the last event the world is facing in the next 20 years or so. So I think it's a very clear picture about trying to get big longer-term framework, which is a lot of what SMI has been trying to push for, I know that.
And I also think that we'll need to end up with another set of accounts. Bankers talking about numbers, but companies have profit and loss and a balance sheet and a cash flow. We're going to need another set of some sort of social capital so that we can say, where do we start the year at social capital and where do we end the year at? Now, that's going to be really difficult and it's going to be really woolly at the start, but it's one of those journeys that if you don't start, you'll never get there. Yeah.